The reactor screamed toward critical mass, birthing a new star. Small pods scattered on the solar wind, pushed by basic chemical rockets. This was not a fleet. It was a single battered metal box hanging at the edge of the burn corridor. 12 Keth warships tore from the empty black of space, weapons hot and hunting for easy prey. They found physics instead. The human ship did not run. No warning, no shields, no fear. The blast wave expanded at a massive fraction of light speed. You will want to hear how they rewrote the rules. 12 hours earlier, the Veilmark station alarms shrieked in absolute sync. Prefect Dren Korath woke with a snap. His secondary hearts beat in a harsh rhythm. He pushed his 4 heavy legs off the rest pad. His thick carapace plates clicked together. For 300 cycles, this border station had sat quiet. It was a giant block of iron and rock at the absolute edge of charted space. It was not a place for peace talks. It was a warning sign. The Conquered built it to watch the dark. It had 42 heavy weapon mounts. Cyan shadows from the wall algae cast long shapes across the floor. Someone had crossed the line. He walked out to the main floor. The air smelled like burnt dust. The station was ready for war. The command chamber buzzed with cold energy. Sarath stood by the crystal console, their clear body shaking. They were a veteran of 3 border wars, but right now, their inner light flickered with deep stress. Korath walked to the main deck. He looked at the giant screen. The rule was absolute. Cross the beacon line and you face the lance. For 12,000 years, the Conquered had kept the peace with that single threat. They did not ask questions. Young species begged, bargained, or they burned. Survival, when offered, was always taken. That was the natural order of the galaxy. Strong empires survived because they knew when to bow. Weak ones died because they fought. It was simple math. But the ship on the screen did not fit the math. It had no energy fields. It used a crude fission core to move. The Conquered had claimed this empty space for 12,000 years. The humans had only been flying between stars for about 100. Korath signaled for an open channel. He expected the usual panic. He expected a loud plea for mercy. The screen changed. A human sat in a cramped metal room. His name was Captain Ren Voss. He had pale skin and dark hair. His uniform was a cheap gray cloth, stained with oil and dirt. His eyes pointed straight forward, like a hunter from a dirt world. He was not looking at the lance cannons. He was looking at the stars outside. He seemed totally blind to the fact that he was looking at a military force that could burn his world to ash. "Your star formations are wild," Voss said. His voice was calm. "We spent 3 hours just mapping the dust clouds." Korath felt his claws slide out a tiny bit. This was wrong. He leaned closer to the audio pickup. "You have crossed a closed border," Korath said. His voice rumbled deep in his throat. "Turn back or we will turn you to ash." Voss leaned forward. Dark soot filled the creases of his knuckles. He rubbed his chin. "Your big guns," Voss said. "They shoot particles, right? What is the heat limit on those barrels? If you fire them too fast, they must melt down." Korath stopped. His mind hit a wall. They were supposed to beg. They asked about physics instead. The human did not seem to understand that he was a few seconds away from death. He was treating a military standoff like a classroom chat. A loud beep cut the quiet. Sarath touched the clear board. Their bodies shook harder. "Jump signatures detected," Sarath said. "Not human, Keth raiders." 7 jagged ships tore out of the dark. They rode the energy wake the human ship had left behind. The Keth were scavengers, born on a harsh world of acid rain and endless war. They hunted in packs, looking for scraps left by the big empires. They only cared about taking what was weak. Their ships were ugly blocks of stolen metal, covered in thick shield plates. They moved with a wild, hungry speed. But the Veilmark station was a prize too. It held 317 people. Most of them were not fighters. They were scientists and families. The Keth ship split up. 3 went for the station. 4 went for the human box. "Weapons hot," Korath barked. "Shields to maximum." The station shook as plasma bolts hit the outer rock. The lights blinked out, then came back green, or rather, a sickly yellow-green. The sound of the hits echoed through the thick metal walls. Out in the black, the human ship moved. It did not run away. It spun hard. The heavy metal hull groaned loudly over the open audio channel. Fire shot from its back end. It placed itself right between the Keth and the Veilmark station. It was a tiny speck of metal standing in front of a giant wall of rock. "What are you doing?" Korath yelled at the screen. "Get out of the way, you have no shields." Voss looked back. "You have civilians in there," he said. "We saw your life signs when we scanned the rock." "We have a shield grid," Korath said. His carapace clicked loudly. "You have a tin can, they will melt you to slag." "We do not leave people behind," Voss said simply. The Pioneer took a hit. A plasma bolt melted the left side of its thick shell. The ship shoved to the side, spinning out of control for a long second. Metal peeled back like dead skin. On the screen, a piece of metal tore loose. It was part of the engine cover, marked with a black serial number. It floated away into the dark, just a plain piece of trash waiting to mean something. Sparks filled Voss's room. Red lights flashed on his small board. He did not blink. He grabbed a heavy stick on his desk and pulled it back. The ship leveled out. Voss raised his hand. He calmly tapped 3 fingers against his leg. 1, 2, 3. It was a slow, steady beat. He was doing math in his head. "Basic pack hunting tactics, Prefect," Voss said over the noise. "We distract, you strike." The human ship spun again. It fired solid slugs of lead from long tubes. The metal rounds slammed into the Keth energy shields. They did not break the shields, but they lit them up. They made the Keth blind. Korath saw the opening. "Fire the lance," he ordered. A bright blue beam shot from the station. It cut a Keth ship in half. The raider blew apart in a silent flash. 2 more followed. The station guns were old, but they hit hard. Then the screen flashed red again. Sareth made a high, thin sound. "More jumps," Sareth said. "A lot more." The radar showed a huge wave coming. 12 more Keth warships. These were heavy cruisers built to crack planetary shields. They were massive wedges of dark metal covered in weapon pods. They would be here in minutes. The Keth must have been waiting for the first pack to test the waters. They used the small ships as bait. Now they were coming for the kill. They would strip the Veilmark station down to its bolts and sell the crew as labor. Korath checked the fleet clock on his wrist. The conquered backup ships were 47 minutes away. They would not make it. The station shields could only hold for 18 minutes against a fleet that size. After the shields fell, the Keth would board the station. "We are dead," Sareth said. The crystal in their arm cracked from the heavy stress. Korath looked at the screen. The Pioneer was broken. It was venting gas into the black. Voss was bleeding from a cut on his head. The red line dripped down his cheek. He looked at the radar data on his own screen. His face did not show fear. It showed deep focus. "We can push the core past the red line," Voss said. "We can make it cascade." Korath frowned. "That is not a weapon. That is your engine." "It is a bomb if you turn off the safeties," Voss said. He wiped blood from his eye. "We learned how to break our own ships on the old oceans. We are very good at not dying." Korath felt a cold weight in his chest. "You will not survive that blast." "My crew is leaving in the pods," Voss said. "I have to steer." The human was talking about ending his own life to save a station of strangers. He said it like he was reading a repair manual. The math of survival failed when a species refused to care about the odds. "I will grant you safe passage if you live," Korath said. It was a massive break in protocol. He did not care. Voss gave a small, tired smile. "Just keep your people safe, Prefect." The screen went black. The Pioneer hung at the burn corridor. Its reactor screamed toward critical mass. Energy readings climbed on Korath's board. It was a star being born in a glass jar. Small spheres detached from the human ship. They were escape pods, firing tiny chemical rockets, scattering like seeds on the solar wind. Sareth counted down, 30 seconds, 25. The Keth reinforcements began tearing through the empty black. 12 warships jumped into a tight shape. Their weapons were hot. Their sensors were hunting for a broken station and a weak human ship. They expected easy prey. They found physics instead. 15 seconds, 10, 9. Koreth watched the main screen. He could not look away. 8, 7, 6. Voss was still inside that metal shell. He was holding the ship steady, making sure the Keth stayed close. 5. The reactor went critical. It was not a clean lance cut. It was not surgical. It was wild. Nuclear fusion unleashed itself in a single instant, turning human tricks into a bright sun. The blast wave expanded at a massive fraction of light speed. A ring of pure white fire pushed outward in all directions. It caught the Keth ships in the middle of their jump. The Keth ships did not stand a chance. 3 of them simply ceased to exist, erased by heat and force before their sensors could even blink. For more twisted, their shields burned away, their hulls torn like wet paper. The thick metal melted and ran like water. 5 scattered, their formation broken, their crews blinded and tumbling out of control into the deep void. They stopped, they broke, they burned. The Keth, who valued only strength, could not process what they had witnessed. A primitive ship had chosen to become fire rather than flee. They did not have a word for that. The Conquered did not have a word for it either. But Dren Koreth felt something in his secondary hearts that no rule book had prepared him for. It was not fear. It was awe. Fleet Admiral Corrin arrived exactly 47 minutes too late to issue orders. The dark space was quiet again. The harsh light faded into a dull glow. The radiation slowly drifted away on the solar winds, leaving a massive empty zone where the Keth fleet used to be. The Veilmark station shields held firm, humming with power. The remaining Keth ships limped away into the deep black, running from the ghost of a human ship. They would not return to this sector for a very long time. Admiral Corrin walked onto the command deck. His uniform was perfect, free of any dust or ash. He brought a fleet of 30 ships, ready to wipe out a massive invasion. He looked at the empty space on the screen. He demanded a full report on the lost border. Koreth gave him the data. He handed over the sensor logs, the audio files, and the final visual of the blast. He watched the Admiral's stern face break. The strict rules of the Conquered crumbled under the weight of what the humans had done. Outside, the station tractor beams pulled 30 small pods into the rescue bay. The medical teams rushed to open them. They were confused by the strange, soft bodies inside. Captain Ren Voss stepped out of a pod. He was covered in fresh, dark soot. His thin uniform was torn. He looked at the massive Conquered guards standing in the bay. He gave a small, tired smile. Weeks later, Koreth sat alone in his room. He walked over to his metal desk. He picked up a twisted shard of hull plate from the engine cover. He turned the metal so the room light caught the scorched number.